Good evening, everyone. Apologies for the delay. We've had a few technical issues, so I'm so sorry to keep you waiting. Welcome to the final day of our Future Careers Expo. This is our last live event. My name's Louisa Condis, and I'm a career consultant here at RMIT. And I'm here with our guest speaker, finally, Ilana. Our workshop today is about changing careers and the 5 top tips before you take the leap.
Hi.
Woman Christian, can you just move on? Yeah. And again. Woman this means welcome in the Victorian Aboriginal language of the Wurundjeri people. And I'd just like to do the acknowledgement of country. RMIT University acknowledges the people of the Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung language groups of the Eastern Kulin Nation on whose unceded lands we conduct the business of the university. RMIT University respectfully acknowledges their ancestors and elders past and present. RMIT also acknowledges the traditional custodians and their ancestors of the lands and waters across Australia where we conduct our business. Just some housekeeping before we start. You can submit questions in the Q&A tool at any time, and we will address these questions at the end of our discussion and do the best to answer as many of them as possible. This session is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand for 30 days. There's also a PDF of the session that you can find in the career booth. So now I'd just like to introduce Ilana, who unfortunately we couldn't get her up on Teams, but we have her on the line. So our guest speaker today is Ilana Nissen, and she's a qualified career coach who has a focus on design thinking. And Ilana aims to support clients in making decisions about their careers that align with their aspirations and life goals. She holds a graduate certificate of careers, education and development, a Bachelor of Laws, a Bachelor of Arts, majoring in psychology, a Bachelor of Business Administration in HR and Marketing, and is a member of the CDAA, Career Development Association of Australia, and the CEAV. Wow, Ilana, that's quite a list. You're well qualified to be advising people about their careers.
Hi, Louisa. Thank you. Yes, it's spent a lot of time at uni in my early days.
So Ilana and I actually met when we were doing the graduate certificate of careers education here at RMIT, and we started it when just as the pandemic hit. So that was interesting, but we still managed to connect, and it was great. We were great support for each other throughout the course, and Ilana has gone on to setting up her own successful practice. And also working at Quaffle Grammar as a careers counsellor. So, Ilana, there's been a lot in the newspaper and a lot of talk lately about changing careers, and COVID-19 has certainly been the catalyst for many people to change careers. There was an article in the paper on the weekend, and RMIT University behavioural economist Dr. Meg Elkins says that now is a good time to change careers because unemployment rates are so low. This means there are greater opportunities in a strong economy for mobility than there were pre-COVID. Do you agree with that, Ilana?
Absolutely, but I also think that you should always be looking to explore new areas. If you're not happy, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, regardless of what the economy is doing and what's out there, your work is something you spend a lot of time of your day doing. So you want to be doing something that you really enjoy. And so at the moment, yes, there's lots of opportunities out there, but it shouldn't only be those times where you're looking for change if you need it.
Absolutely. Okay, so how should you go about deciding on a new career if you are unhappy in your current one? All the research shows that there's at least 5 key steps, and we try to keep it just to 5 to simplify it, that you should undertake to do this successfully. Self-assessment, research, plan, gain experience and network, and then do a reality check. So, Ilana, can you tell me about a bit about yourself and your changing career so far?
Absolutely. I've probably done this now 3 times myself in my career. So when I finished uni, I guess while I was at uni, I was fortunate to get a clerkship at a great law firm in the city, and I ended up getting offered an articles role there after that. And I worked there for probably on and off 10 years, had both my children while I was there and went back part-time. But after that, I did my own reality check when I realised I didn't want to continue working in the law. And so I did a bit of a 360 on myself to see what skills did I have, what were the things that I enjoyed about what I did, and then looked out also to my networks to see what was out there, what were people doing in the industry outside of law, and what interested me in what they were doing. And that's where I ended up moving into marketing and comms. And I spent probably the next 10 years working in the startup space in technology, and but working in the marketing comms area. So I got a really good insight into what's going on in the startup world, but also in the marketing and communication side. But I guess for me then, after those 10 years, it was again another self-discovery of realising that the corporate world really wasn't where I saw myself, and I wanted to go into an area that was about helping people, and that was probably took me right back to my very beginning of studies, which was psychology through arts, and that was probably what I was trying to bring into the corporate world throughout each step of the way, and realised what I wanted to do was help young students and just people in general find what they're passionate about, and that's what led me to the course that I did, meeting you, and where I am today.
Great. So sounds like you have done a bit of self-discovery twice there. And so, we talk about those VIPs, your values, your interests, looking at your values, your interests, your personality and your skills. But I think, also probably your strengths. I think you mentioned, you knew where your strengths were, and so you could use those. You can use some online assessment tools, online tools as well, to sort of work out, where you should go. And if you've been to see a careers practitioner, they might have shown you what's called the Nodell career value card sorts, which we use for people to work out what their values are. But there are some online tools at RMIT. We've got the My Career Match. There's the ONET Interest Profiler, and the Skills Match on Job Outlook. So Ilana's talked about her using her transferable skills. So can we just go on to that next slide, Christian? That it's really important to think about your transferable skills. So what did you think? What ones have you really relied upon, Ilana?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because I didn't even realise what I was doing when I was doing it. So I was probably going through that exact process that you've talked about just there without doing it formally. So the biggest probably transferable skill that I think I've taken across, and definitely from law into communication, was writing, and being able to write concisely and writing to the point and not labouring on things. So that was something I learned pretty much in my legal experience, but was really required in the comms PR space. And so at that time, I didn't even realise that I had that skill. And once I was given the opportunity to move into a totally different industry, I could see how something like that, and communication verbally as well, relationship building, things like that, were very much skills that I could transfer over.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, for me, I actually, similarly to Ilana, started out as a lawyer, but I had moved into legal recruitment and spent 15 years working in legal recruitment. So then making the transition to careers counselling was not huge, because I'd been working with people in their careers for a long time, and I just sort of looked at the parts of my job that I really liked and said, this is the bit that I want to be doing. I do this as a recruiter, but I want to be doing more of it. So which is why I went and did the careers course at RMIT, or started working more in careers. But I think, transferable skills is so important There was an article in the paper, that same article that the RMIT University behavioural economist was quoted in. They talked about a lady called Jackie, and she's 49, and she was starting a cadetship at the Latrobe Valley newspaper after a career in TV as a chef and running her own cooking school. She went back and studied a graduate diploma in journalism at RMIT, and her boss said, I'd never employed anyone that was older than me before, but she brought amazing transferable skills to the role, and she's not afraid to get out there and call people and, you know, find out information and pick up the phone. And so, you know, there were lots of those transferable skills that made him employ Jackie. So I think that's great. There's a good website, the Job Outlook .gov.au. I love that website, and there's a skills match tool on there as well that people can use. Do you use that with your clients, Ilana?
Sometimes I don't use as many tools when I do one-on-one. At school we do, but one-on-ones I tend to get them to do a bit of a self-reflection, and we get them to write things down and going through exactly that. What are the things that they're really passionate about, and not just looking at self-discovery where they're at now, but making them sort of go back in time and look at their past, because sometimes things have sort of floated through your life and you don't even realise that there's something that you're passionate about until someone starts to pick them out for you and help you see them. So we sort of do a bit more of a deep dive discovery into their life to date.
Right. And so did you actually, Christian, can you go into the next slide, and we'll just advertise ourselves, but did you speak to a career counsellor at all? Because, you know, obviously that can really help.
Yeah, interesting. So when I decided to leave the corporate world, I at that time had a child that was entering year 10, and I was told at the time, you need to take him to see a career counsellor. He wasn't sure what he wanted to do. He was tossing up between architecture and psychology, two very different and opposing kind of career choices. And so we did, and in fact the person that I took him to became a bit of a role model for me and a mentor. So it was at that point where I went, oh gosh, this is what I just love. This is what I would love to do. And so watching him going through that process with her led me to think, maybe this is something that will be great for me. And so I did reach out to her, and I remember making the call and saying, I'm going to ask you a really strange question because I want to do what you do. And I wasn't sure how she'd take that, but she has been unbelievable, and she really has guided me every step of the way that I've gone. And even now we catch up regularly, and we explore different ideas and discuss what's going on in the space of careers and career education, not just here but overseas as well. And she comes from a legal background too, so we've got quite similar backgrounds.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That you're so lucky to have a mentor like that, and you know, you can't underestimate the importance of having a mentor. So yeah, I think you know, people can reach out. Yeah, look, if there's somebody who you've connected with, if you can form that kind of mentor or mentee relationship, it's really invaluable. You're very lucky. And obviously, you know, if you are looking for a career practitioner, the place to go is the Career Development Association of Australia. If you go to that website, you can find a career specialist near you, or you know, most of us will do consults online these days. But I think, you know, just having a conversation where you articulate all your thoughts is really important. And one of the great things we learned from the Graduate Certificate of Adult Careers Education at RMIT was about design thinking, and it's been amazing because it helps you to reframe problems and, you know, ideate and prototype and try things. Don't you reckon, Ilana?
Agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So something like, you know, I'm too old to study, or, you know, is reframed as you're never too old to learn.
And I've had not so much where it's been clients, but I've had friends who look at me and say to me all the time, but I would never have the guts, or I would never be able to do what you've done. And And that is exactly what you're talking about, reframing that thought process, because why would you not have the guts? What is it that is holding you back? And being able to turn that on itself and say, you know, you can do this. It's not scary. It's great to explore new things, and what's the positives that we can take out of that.
Yeah, so we'll just talk a bit about the research that you did, and if you can go on to the next slide. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, so you obviously spoke with the counsellor. What other kind of research did you do, Ilana?
I guess it was self-reflection. So that was the first step. And then my first meeting with the careers counsellor, she sort of gave me a few things to take away and do some research myself. So when it came to then deciding that was what I wanted to do, I actually went to her with a list of courses, and she was great in showing me, no, don't do that one, do this one for these reasons. And just sort of reframing for me exactly what is the end goal here? What do you want to achieve? And remembering that I didn't want to go back to study indefinitely or for a long period of time. I had an end goal of wanting to get into a new career. So what was the best way to do that, to learn? And probably the other bit of information that she passed on to me was the importance of continual professional development. And I think that goes with any industry, but it certainly goes with careers, is that the world of careers and the world of courses are constantly changing. So our role in careers is to be updating yourself and doing as much professional development as you can, so that you can then share your knowledge with people out there that is as current as it possibly can be.
Yeah, and in a way, you'd already done what we call an information in the business. We call it an informational interview. So where you sit down and talk with someone and get as much information as you can about doing their job. And so I'm always telling students, can you maybe try and find someone on LinkedIn through the alumni or somebody you know that works in this area, and give them a call or buy them a coffee, now that we can meet face to face, although, it's pretty easy to do it on Zoom, maybe not Teams, but Zoom. And, just chat to them about what they do and don't like about the career, about the job, and whether it's suitable for you, how you could go about getting into it. And, people really like to hire people that they know and have met, and someone who's expressed an interest in their area. And so if a job does come up, they'll go, oh, what about so-and-so? They called me, and I've worked in recruitment for a long time, and I've heard of it happening so many times. So it's great. So do your research, network, informational interviews, read relevant articles and publications, maybe join an industry group or attend a conference or seminar, or they're all, sort of information gathering tools. Okay, and so, sorry, you go, Ilana.
Oh, no, I was just going to add on to the networking, because I think that's a really huge component for anyone, even if you're not changing careers, is just to be constantly connecting with people. And from my experience, that people are really happy to help you as much as they can. So if they can, they will. And without asking you or connecting with people, you'll just never know, and you assume it's a no, but most of the time it's going to be a yes. And so a really important factor, I put myself out there, and I contacted people I had never met before, and emailed or rang them and said, can I shadow you? Can I just watch what you're doing and see whether I like this or not? Or can you just, let me know what is it like doing what you do, and so forth. And that's not just when I transitioned to careers, that also happened when I transitioned into the communication space as well.
Amazing. That's gold standard, folks. Well done. That's great. And so, I mean, you obviously, had a bit of an action plan, and I know that in our course, the graduate certificate in adult careers, education and development, we had to develop an action plan about what we would do for our career as well, which was really useful as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it sort of can help you look and go, okay, where are my skills gaps as well? And, for me, I'd been working in recruitment for a long time, and then I started working at a university with law students to help them get jobs and improve their employability. So I'd already sort of made the transition. But then when I was looking at other jobs, there was a consistent qualification missing the whole time, which was the grad cert in adult careers development. So, have a look. Maybe there's a short course you can do to upskill. There are a lot of graduate certificates you can do that can help you move over into things these days. There's a lot on LinkedIn Learning and free courses on Coursera. A short investment of time might mean that you can suddenly go from one career to be a UX UI designer or something, brand new career. I was working with a girl at Telstra in the careers department, and she was studying part-time to become a UX UI designer, and I'm sure she'll have a job now because there's a big demand for those people. Okay, and so you said you decided on the postgraduate study that you undertook because you were advised by the careers counsellor, is that right, Ilana?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was also, as you said, so doing the research myself and seeing that that is the minimum standard that is required to work in this industry. So that was a no-brainer. So, but the important part, I guess, was when you're going back to study is you don't want to be putting your employment on hold either. So you want something that is going to give you the qualifications, but at the same time you want to be able to work. So exactly to that point, it doesn't have to be a 3-year degree. It can be a short course. It can be a certificate. It can be a diploma in something that is just going to upskill you and allow you to be able to enter into a new area.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And, we were lucky because while we were studying, we managed to gain experience working on the My Career Insights program for the Victorian government, because both Ilana and I sort of put ourselves out there and said, we can do this. So I think, getting that experience, and you've just got to be quite brave, don't you, Ilana?
You do. And I that's where it goes back to what have you done before and those transferable skills. So just because what you did wasn't in the industry that you're trying to get into, it doesn't mean that you don't have the skills that they're looking for, even if you don't have the qualification yet. So exactly to that point of the My Careers Insight, it was that we had a lot of the skills that they were looking for people to work in that area. We just didn't have their formal qualification. So they were happy to take us on prior to getting our qualification because we had all those transferable skills and we could show how we had those.
Yeah. And, I've been saying to people lately, if you work in a large company, maybe you could stay in your current job and take on a project in that area where you're trying to get into to get the experience, or go and talk to HR and say, look, I've done an MBA. How can I get some management experience? People really want to keep employees these days, and they're looking for good people. They don't want to lose good employees either. And, so you'd be amazed what opportunities can come up when you ask. You might not want to ask the person that you directly report to, but maybe talk to HR or someone who's a little bit removed if you're worried about doing that. I think, I was just going to say, what did you think that how did your RMIT experience and qualification support your career change, Ilana? I mean, we had a good sort of we've got a good Facebook group, haven't we?
We do, and it continues on, which is fantastic, and it's got alumni as well for previous years, which is great. It's both online and Facebook and just RMIT in general. So it's been great in that regard. And just one thing that I want to add, even though COVID hit, we signed up for this course well before COVID. So I signed up, I think it was July or August of 2019. There was no COVID then, and it was an online course. So it wasn't, COVID was just happened to coincide. So it didn't impact study so much. There were a few things we couldn't do in person, but I'd always committed to an online course well before we knew COVID was coming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And we made the effort to go and meet people in the course, even though we couldn't do there was supposed to be a 3-day workshop where we met everyone, but we couldn't do that. But we still have made the effort. And you do, and you can get out and meet people now, which is great.
And it's taking the glass half full approach. So you can sit there and say, how did COVID impact? But at the same time, what did I gain from COVID? So we gained a lot. So we were straight away being able to pivot onto line with everything we did. So with My Career Insights, we went online with all the schools. It was no big deal to start counselling online. So
yeah, worked pretty well, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so do you have any tips for audience members considering further study to achieve their career goals?
Well, one is make sure you're choosing the right course for yourself of what you want to do. Make sure that it's something that you've really researched properly. And I guess my big tip that I received, and I think it was invaluable, is my natural instinct was to go for the highest level qualification because that's just who I am. But in reality, that's not what I needed. And so flipping it to what do I need versus what do I think I should be doing. And a lot of whatever career you're in, there's always going to be professional development that goes on. And I'm extremely lucky now to be working in schools as well as private. So an area I never thought I was going to go into, but absolutely love. And I've got an extremely incredible mentor within that I work with. And so there's constantly professional development that comes there, and working with someone and for an organisation where they support that's huge for me. So making sure that the course you choose is actually suiting what you're requiring at the end of it. What's your end goal?
And any tips for going back to study after a long period? It was quite a shock, wasn't it? But we were lucky because we had lockdown. There was nothing else to do.
There was nothing else to do. My number one tip for studying, going back to study or studying as a young student is organisation.
Yeah,
and full stop. Yeah. We're all so busy and we have so much on our plate, and it's really easy, especially as a postgrad student studying later in life. You're working, you may have family, you've got a lot of competing things going on in your life. And if you are organised, then that is the key. So small targets. Don't set yourself these big targets of what do I want to accomplish in the next 6 months. That's great, but that's the big overview. You need to break it down. Set yourself little targets, day, weekly. How am I going to study? When can I study? And stick to it. And that's the part that's going to get you through it. So, you know, like when you may have to put the washing on, or you may have to take your children to their sports on the weekend. When are you going to be studying? And sit down and use that study period as study period, exactly that. Don't get distracted by other things. So that's the big thing, being organised.
Yeah. And so did you sort of, you know, I found I had to do a bit of a reality check, you know, and you don't want to go into a career that's going to become obsolete. So you want to make sure that you're choosing something that there's strong demand in the future. You know, does the new role mean taking a pay cut such that it will put too much pressure on you and your dependents? So you've got to think about things like that. You know, you might have to take a little bit of a step backwards to move forward, but you know, hopefully it doesn't have to be too much. You know, a lot of the roles that we work on are contract roles, so you might have to consider things like that as well. Yeah, is it
flexibility that comes with that is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's also, I guess, part of your checking if it's the right time to be making that transition and change. So you don't want to be going through a change like changing careers, maybe having to take a step back in pay and so forth, if you're not going to be able to sustain that. And if it's not the right time in your life, then doing it is going to put too much burden on yourself as well. So there are a few things that you do need to check before you do embark on a change like that. Making sure that, yes, if you need work and you need to earn a certain amount each week, that you're going to still be able to do that, because the financial pressures can end up overshadowing the change of career.
Yeah, that's right. And the enjoyment you get out of the new career as well. Yeah, absolutely. So how smoothly would you say your career transition has gone? It seems, from my point of view, it seems, having met you at the beginning of the course, it seems to me like you've done exactly what you've told me you were going to do, although maybe working in secondary schools was not something you were imagining, but yeah, would you say it's gone smoothly?
And that's, I guess, another point is to be open-minded, because I originally went into this change with the view that I wanted to help people a bit similar to myself who had either been out of the workforce for a period of time or weren't happy in the roles that they were in and wanted that change later in life. Because I'd heard so many times over and over again, how do you do that? I couldn't do it. I don't have the guts. But once I started getting into it, I realised that it all begins back at school, and there's so much influence at the school age, even if you do change careers later, that happened at school. And I just feel so fortunate and grateful that those doors opened for me and I kept an open mind about it. And now I can't imagine working anywhere else. So yeah, I feel
you
really
are perfectly
grateful.
suited to it, can I say? Yeah.
Oh,
That's
thank
great.
you. I feel really grateful for where I am today. I feel really fortunate and lucky, but I also don't think it happened totally by fluke. I think if you follow a lot of steps that we talked about at the beginning, you can make it happen. So it's just having that right action plan in place and reframing your life and reframing where you're at.
And just to wrap it up, Ilana, what do you think is the most important thing you learned from the process of changing careers, and what top tips would you give the audience?
One, there's nothing that's off limits. So if you want to go and be a doctor at the age of 45, go for it. Don't be put off by what the process is to go through it. If that is where your passion lies, go for it, follow it. We work so many hours of our life and days of our lives and weeks of our months and years. So you don't want to be sitting there doing something that you don't love and dreading going to work every day. I can be at work and be absolutely exhausted, but I love being there, and I just feel so grateful for that. And I realise how important that is, and so go for it is the biggest thing. Take the risk, take the challenge, be around people that are going to support you, get proper advice from a career consultant, absolutely essential. Make sure you're on the right path, and network, get your networks up and around you, because that's what's going to get you through.
Absolutely. That is such awesome advice. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are just wishing that you could coach them, Ilana, so they can obviously connect with you on LinkedIn if they want to. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate your advice. It's wonderful. And I must admit, you've inspired me. And every time I've thought, oh, this is really hard, I've spoken to you and you've had so much energy and so many ideas and stuff that's been good. So it's been great to have you as my RMIT buddy, and I'm sure that we'll have a long friendship going forward. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to end off with a quote from Steve Jobs. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. The only way to do great work is to love what you do. So that's what Ilana was talking about, loving what she does. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. I think Ilana's found it, which is fantastic.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go to some questions. There's a few there. What advice would you give to anyone who's looking to move up in their role, not necessarily change careers? What do you think, Ilana? I think, well, talking to your manager, talking to the HR in your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think within the large organisations, you generally have reviews quite regularly. So I found when I was working that there are constant reviews and KPIs that you have to meet. I think number one is that you've got to meet them and exceed them, and you've got to show that you're worth. And you also need to set your intentions. I think that's really important as well, is to make sure that the organisation knows that you have ambition and you want to grow with the company, you want to develop. And I think any organisation that has an employee that is saying that constantly to them is so lucky. So the right organisation is going to jump on that and going to take you with it.
Yeah,
so don't be
believe
shy.
me. Having worked in recruitment for a long time, I know that people do not want to lose people, and they'll do, because when they lose people, all the intellectual property goes, all that training, it costs them a lot to hire someone else. They would rather move them up in their career and keep them in the business. So don't be afraid to ask, put yourself out there. You've got nothing to lose. And if they don't give you a promotion or move up, then look elsewhere. Now's a good time to do it, basically. Do you need to save money to give yourself some runway to make the transition when you're changing careers? What do you think, Ilana?
Yeah,
it's probably a good idea.
Yeah. It goes back to my point. It has to be the right time financially. You have to be in the right place. So, or being able to take a bit of a slump or have saved. So there is definitely, most of the time, there is going to be a slight financial drop when you change. How long that takes will depend on the transition you make. So that's why I said you don't want finance to be the overarching, because at the end of the day, if you can't afford to pay your bills and you can't afford to put food on the table, whatever it is that you need from day to day, that's going to impact your transition to another career. So timing is everything, and making sure that you really have set yourself up. So if that is saving some money before you're doing it, or working full time and going to study part-time and do it as part-time as you can on the side. I know a lot of people that I've worked with in the past who were basically in their full-time role, corporate role, and then on the side building skills for themselves because they knew that the role they were in was not what they wanted to do. And I'm not suggesting that you do it behind your employer's back, but the point is keep developing yourself, but don't put yourself in a position where, money's going to be hard.
Right. Yeah. Great advice. How do I advocate my transferable skills when changing careers?
In what?
I think, once upon a time, people, when they were recruiting for a role, they might have gone, okay, here are the 10 things that we want. And if you had 8 of them, they'll take you. I think these days, if you've got 5, they'll take you. And a lot of those 5 will be transferable skills. So I think looking at what people want in the job and thinking about what you've done that's similar. And
that's often asked in interviews these days. They'll actually ask you to give examples. So they'll have their skills that are most important for the role, and they'll ask you to give examples in an interview of where you can show that you've displayed those. So that's where you need to be organised and actually prepare. So almost get the job description and make notes of all the different things that you've done with your work that reflect on those skills. So
yeah, using the old STAR technique. Yeah,
correct.
Situation, task, action, result. Yep. Great. How can you get experience in a role where most internships work experience is designed for younger people? Well, Ilana's just told us she did some work shadowing, and I think that's probably something you can do when you're more of a middle-aged career changer. Wouldn't you agree, Ilana?
I think you can do it at any age. I've seen, young kids who are in 2021 who are just coming towards the end of their 3-year undergraduate degree and perhaps are starting to get an idea of where they want it to take them, but have done more of a general degree and unsure, and so it's about getting that exposure. So firstly looking at your own network. What have I got in my own network? Who do I know that could perhaps introduce me to someone or is working somewhere that I like, and just call them, email them and say, can I come and spend a week with you, a day with you, half a day, whatever it is.
Yeah, absolutely. People are so helpful, aren't they? It's amazing.
So helpful.
Yeah. So I think that answers that question about, do you have any advice about reaching out to people and organisations to gain experience or shadow? I think, make connections with people, and people are incredibly generous. You'd be surprised. You just have to ask. You've got nothing to lose, really. I think.
And LinkedIn is a great source as well. So
sorry, where is LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. So making sure you with people through LinkedIn who are in the areas that you might want to be going into. If there are certain people that are I guess that you inspire you in some way, reach out to them. People will say yes. Send them a little message with the invitation, a personal message to them. And sometimes just reaching out to someone on LinkedIn and saying, you know, can you just tell me a little bit about what you do? If that came in my inbox, 100% you get a reply in the, you know, the first opportunity I had. So,
yeah,
and I don't think alone in that either.
Yeah. We've got a few more questions. We'll have to answer these offline, I think. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to you, Ilana. That's been amazing, very empowering. I've had lots of comments here saying great session, empowering session. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it here at RMIT. It's great to have connections with great people like you. If we go on to the next slide, Christian, so this recording will be available for the next 30 days. You've got access to on-demand resources, career tools and other information, and you can book a one-on-one free careers consult with me or my colleague Bethany here at the RMIT Future Students Recruitment Team. So thanks so much for coming along today, everyone. We really appreciate it, and be brave. See you later. Bye.